Have you ever been in a situation where you thought was going to be really super easy when you got started, but by the time it was all over, oh man, what a mess. And you just probably wished you'd never got into it to begin with and probably ended up losing a little bit of money? Well, let me talk to you about a recent client of ours, Sarah and Mike, who did exactly that. You see, Sarah and Mike were planning on selling their house here locally as they had a dream of actually retiring and moving down to Florida. So they put a contract on a house down in Florida, and they had heard that, the market was still pretty good here. And after all, if they sold the house themselves, they'd probably save a little bit of money on commissions. So you really can't blame them for that. So that's exactly what they did. After putting the contract on the house in Florida, they put the for sale sign right here in Georgia. And it wasn't shortly thereafter that they actually got a great offer. It looked pretty straightforward. It was a buyer, and the buyer was represented by their agent. And like I said, it looked pretty straightforward to begin with. However, what they didn't realize is that the buyer's agent, they were pretty shrewd. And they were very skilled in contracts and contract negotiations. So what they didn't realize is that they actually got into a contract that didn't bind the buyer to actually buying the property, committing 100% to the buying the contract until almost the closing date. Gave them an enormous amount of time, almost 30 days to actually wait before the actual buyer was committed to buying this property. So what do you think is going to happen during that 30-day period? Well, as you can imagine, the buyer's agent, who's representing the buyer, ended up doing a whole litany of inspections. And after every single inspection, lo and behold, there were some issues. And delay after delay after delay started to mount. Now, Sarah and Mike are getting pretty nervous at this point and pretty frustrated, to be quite honest with you, as they really didn't know what was going to happen. The time was ticking, and they were fully committed to purchasing this property down in Florida. In fact, they put a pretty hefty earnest money deposit down on that contract, and they didn't have an out. They needed to close on that property, or they were in risk of losing their earnest money or deposit on that property. So you can imagine what might happen or what happened next. Here we are 30 days into the contract. They're supposed to close in I think about another 5 or 6 days, and the hammer came down. The buyer's agent finally came to them and said, if you want us to move forward, we're going to have to purchase the price at a significantly reduced price from what we originally contracted for. Now, it was all legitimate. It was not illegal because of the way that they had negotiated the contract. And so Sarah and Mike were in an absolute panic. They felt like they had been pushed into a corner and they didn't have any other options, and they were going to have to accept this reduced price on their property. Thankfully, instead of agreeing to it, they decided to turn to us, reached out to us for a little bit of help. Thank goodness they did. We actually came in and were able to take and evaluate the contract. We were able to grab all the parties involved with the transaction. The buyer's agent and ourselves and our brokers all sat down and went through the entire contract and renegotiated a new deal where everybody came out a winner. Sarah and Mike ended up getting the purchase price that they were looking for. We closed it on time. The buyers got a beautiful brand new home that they were super happy with, and Sarah and Mike got the funds that they needed and closed on time in order to purchase their new home down in Florida. So thankfully, everything worked out, but I tell you, Sarah and Mike, they went through a tremendous amount of stress that they probably could have alleviated if they would have had a professional realtor with them on day one. So that's the moral of the story. Don't think that real estate is not complex. It is. Make sure that you have a professional person, agent that is representing you every single step of the way as you move through your real estate transaction. As always, we're here to answer any questions. Would love to talk to you about your real estate needs and how we can help. So that's the story of Sarah and Mike. I hope you enjoyed it.